Hi, welcome to another frigid Monday here, rolling into the end of, the beginning of the end of our January week, our first month of 2019, and we're joined by Chief Meteorologist Nick Austin, who's going to tell us about these sub-zero temperatures happening where, well, we'll find out in just one moment. And we're joined by Sultan of Sonar, Zach Strickland, going to tell us what's happening with volumes. Are they coming up now that it is the end of the month and everybody's trying to get everything in order? We'll find out momentarily how positive or negative is his spin going to be for us and what's happening right now. So Nick Austin, hello. How about that polar vortex? What's happening?
If you think it's cold now, just wait. Up in the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, it was already so cold this weekend. They had wind chills up there and of minus 40 degrees in some spots.
Minus 40.
And it's snowing across Michigan right now. It snowed earlier today across Chicago, and that's all going to head into the Northeast tonight. But if you see this little band of rain that's stretching down from all that Midwest snow, that rain is going to change to snow as far south as Louisiana.
What?
And right here in Chattanooga at FreightWaves headquarters later on tonight and early tomorrow. That's right. I'm not talking about huge amounts of snow, but enough that it could make an impact as far as travel and for truckers, especially along I-20, I-40, some of those major highways down south. But you mentioned the polar vortex.
Yeah.
That's not really going to affect us a whole lot. We're not going to see the real brunt of that. But they will up in the Great Lakes. The same areas like Chicago and Milwaukee, Green Bay, all those cities up there, they're going to see just even worse cold weather beginning later tonight. And it's going to stick around for probably about 3 days. There'll be some spots in the Great Lakes region that won't get above zero at all for about 3 days.
Wow.
And dangerously cold wind chills. We're talking about frostbite setting in a matter of 5 minutes on any exposed skin for any drivers who are stuck outside for just a little bit of time. So
okay, so remember that, people who still want to try to wear shorts in the middle of winter. I actually have a question, Nick. So in the South, us Southerners, boy, we can get disrupted by an inch or two of snow. But how are they handling it up in the Windy City and in all these areas that you're talking about? That is serious cold. Will the additives, will the gel refrigerant, the stuff they put in the fuel, will that help? Or is there a certain point where you just can't move forward?
There might be a certain threshold. There might be a certain temperature to where it just might not make a difference. I don't know that, but I do know if you don't use any at all, you're definitely going to be in bad shape. Aging batteries are going to have really a hard time cranking up. And there'll be trouble with brake systems failing. All the usual problems that drivers could have with really cold weather. The chance of that happening is even greater with an air mass that's going to be this cold.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot of trouble with trucks. There'll be probably more demand for what we call the no freeze equipment. Drivers who have those loads to carry that are very temperature sensitive. If they can get their hands on a reefer, they're going to need to have the temperature set properly. So just all kinds of issues with air that's that cold, with winds that are that bad. It's going to be tough for a few days up there. The least problem is probably, the roads are going to be bad enough just because of snow and ice, but they're used to that up there. It's the wind and this extreme cold. This is some of the coldest air for this area in probably about 20 years.
Wow. So even more spectacular.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update. Winter blues still happening for us. With us, it's the usual suspects of things that can go wrong. They just might go wrong. So do be safe out there. So it's nasty out there. It is gray. It is very wintry. Sultan of Sonar, Zach Strickland, do you have anything that's any more positive, or are we staying gray here? What's going on? Any good news?
Well, kind of building off of Nick's map here, we've got the outbound tender market share weekly change pulled up. And this is kind of an indication of how well each individual market is doing in relation to the broader market. So any blues you see here mean that they have increased in market share value. It doesn't necessarily mean that their volumes have increased overall. but it means that in relation to the national volume levels, they're going up. So they could technically just be flat and not going down while the rest of the market contracts.
Okay.
So that's not, that's kind of my way of saying things aren't all terrible, Chad.
There's this little tiny
this guy right here.
Yeah.
This is the Joliet market. It is a top 3 market in the country in terms of overall outbound volume. And JP's going to pull up kind of what we saw on the map, and
it's looking really gray.
Yeah, it's a gray tree map. So basically, it's the same exact information. But one of these areas, and except it's not the weekly change, I should say. This is just straight up outbound tender market.
Do you want to tell our viewers like what the corresponding colors mean? Like what does green mean?
So the greens here mean day over day. The value has gone up. It's increased. So you see Joliet right here in green has come up over the last day. But then you see the large majority of this map is gray. Just kind of like you'd expect in the winter. Like you look up at the sky and everything's gray. Some of these bigger markets here, you see that the outbound tender market share is a good map to kind of see how much volume is going into the overall market, and individual, like these bigger chunks right here represent bigger markets.
Right.
So Ontario, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Joliet, all huge markets in the United States. But you see, what I find interesting is that there's really little change. Like these grays mean that there's not a lot of volatility right now in terms of volume. That means they're kind of staying where they are, which is hard to do in a relational kind of setting here.
You would think that some would go up maybe while others go down.
Yeah, there's always a chance of some sort of like ripple effect.
What do the fuchsia colors mean?
Fuchsia or red. They mean that day over day the market share value has come down. So these markets right here are ones that I would probably, if I'm a carrier, I'm thinking about probably not a lot of opportunity there. But this Joliet being green, again, like Nick was talking about, lots of cold weather moving in that market. So they're going to have trouble kind of operating in this area over the next day or so. But yeah, it's kind of a gray map. And I kind of want to go to the next chart here, where it's going to give us a picture of the national volume setting. Okay. And I know we've talked about this a little bit much, and I don't want to get too deep with it, but I just kind of wanted to give an update, as volumes have still kind of moved back under this 9,400 threshold. And I have some of these values pulled up here for the times that it's kind of been this low. Way back here in April, the volume kind of dropped off significantly before recovering quite rapidly. But still, it was a pretty low value, 94.88.
Yeah.
But then right here, we were actually lower than we are now back in early October. As volumes kind of pulled back out of this September, like superheated, summer into early fall situation. But now we are back down below 9,400. It doesn't look like things are getting any more, their volumes are not increasing right now as we would typically see at the end of a month.
Yeah, and so we dropped off what would be for something, for considering it is not the seasonality of the holiday season here.
Exactly.
Huge drop off, but actually we've been covering it. This actually is a fairly normal occurrence.
Yes.
On year-over-year data, 2018 was kind of more of an anomaly, right, with that. But what you're saying is that usually by now we're coming up higher.
Yeah, this right here is what's kind of cool. Like, we came out of the holiday a little bit higher than expected. It is not unusual to see volumes come down, but we came out of the holiday period just like on fire. I mean, things were, I won't say
starting
on fire
to trend
like
back up, strong,
not like June on fire, but certainly hotter than we thought it would be coming out of the holiday period. Now we're in the third and fourth weeks of January, are traditionally kind of these really low points.
Okay, well, not to get too macro economic on you, but do you think that there are these like government shutdown, tariff type of things going into what is happening with the surprising we're not coming back up, or what do you attribute it to?
No, so yeah, the government shutdown, whereas I don't think, and again, I'm not the chief economist, but I don't think we're going to see this huge initial impact from it. That's more of something that's going to happen in like the second quarter.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we have government employees that weren't getting their paychecks. We just got, news that they're going to reopen on Friday.
But maybe only for 3 weeks.
Yeah, but only for 3 weeks. So what that does is all these manufacturers and everybody who are gauging demand and how much they're going to need for their product, they may not be producing as much product, especially since they've just spent the entire 2018 pulling it all in to the country. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. I don't think there's been anything in consumer sentiment or whatever that it's everybody's going to stop spending money because they're worried about it. But these government employees and people that can't get things done because the government shut down certainly puts kind of a handicap on the economy, especially as we were kind of like already cooling off from this very overheated 2018 kind of moment.
And I think to your point as well, like there is still so much uncertainty even for the next 3 weeks. I mean, will the sides budge? Will there be any movement? Will the government be, as I think we heard Trump indicate his willingness again, yesterday, that he's perfectly willing, if you take him at his word, to shut the government down again by February 15th. Like maybe people are like, okay, we might get some back pay, but are we really moving forward with?
Yeah. And I think it's still too early to really tell what the overall impact's going to be in general, but it's certainly not helping the situation right now.
That one would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is some interesting data, and that's a lot of discouraging news, I have to be honest. Zach, do you have anything positive for us? Come on, what's happening right now that could be good news?
All right, so I do have something good for you, and it relates to the oil market, so I'm kind of stepping out a little bit. So the oil market has become a growing part of our overall economy over the last five or so years. As we've increased our production levels, we're now one of the biggest producers of crude in the world.
And so here on this chart, interestingly, you've got brought up crude oil production of the 48 states, and you're cross comparing it with the WTI, which is that the price of
that's the good old fashioned West Texas Intermediate price.
Yeah.
So that's what the going rate for this West Texas crude is in the United States. It's kind of a benchmark for how much it costs. We've gone through the process of saying, the break-even rate is around $30 to $35. So once it goes below that, all these oil wells shut down, etc. But the good news here is even as the price has kind of fallen down and kind of bottomed out under 50, we still keep cranking out crude oil. And you're probably going to ask me the question, why is that good news? Well, it's good news in the way that oil is, since it's a huge part of our economy. And I had it pulled all the way out to 2016. And if you'll see this line right here.
Okay. Yeah.
This guy right here falls off in 2016.
Production.
And it actually created this kind of mini, not recession, but it slowed down freight. Anybody that was in the freight market in 2016 knows that this was it was kind of an off year for freight. It wasn't like 2009 recession slowdown, but it was definitely slower than you would expect. And then it kind of starts picking back up, just like the rest of the economy.
A couple of odd troughs there. We don't know what that's about, but the prices were So we experienced at the end of 2018 a precipitous decline after a whole lot of trending upwards, almost to $100. People were speculating about that, and then we got scared. Now it's ticking right back up.
Yeah, and that means that they're going to keep producing oil. They'll keep producing plastic. We'll keep shipping this off, so that will be more money injected into our overall economy, which keeps trucks moving.
Yes! All right, well, some good news happening for you right now on this frigid blue gray, cold Monday, at least in many parts of the country. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to keep bringing it to you live each and every business day here on FreightWaves Now. So check us out on FreightWaves.com at 4 o'clock every single day, and on Twitter. And we thank you so much for tuning in, and we will keep you up to date. You can always ask us if you want us to deep dive into something else with some of our data. But in the meantime, be safe out there, and don't worry, be happy.